Okay, so the final video we're going to do today is going over lab reports. If you're logged into Canvas like I am here, you will be able to see your, under Files, you'll see Useful Resources. And for one, your lab manuals are under here. And then if you go under Useful Resources, you'll see a folder called Latex Lab Report Template, and there will be an example project in there. So if you want to install LaTeX on your computer and use it, you can download the zip file, and it contains everything that you need to run LaTeX and start this project on your computer. I prefer just using an online version of LaTeX. It's called Share LaTeX, and I have the report on here, and I'll go over it in a second with you. So all the resources are here on Canvas under Useful Resources. There's some tips here, lab report tips. Look through them, things to consider, what, why, how. Make sure you include a cover page on your lab report. You'll see it in an example. Back up any statements. I think I've mentioned that before. Your structure is going to be an introduction, a body, where you're going to write about the exercises you had to do and the results that you found, and then you're going to put were your results expected, why or why not. And you're going to show tables, graphs, etc. for every exercise. The first lab details what they want you to put in there, pretty detailed, but after that it becomes a little more fuzzy on what exactly needs to be in there, because they expect you to already know how to do the lab report. Okay, so the next thing we'll go through is the lab report example. This is one that I created online in LaTeX. It's on the website, so you can download it. And this is made with LaTeX. You can use Microsoft Word or something else, but it is kind of a pain sometimes to, it's not opening fast enough here, but I can show you in here. Okay, here it is. You can do it in Microsoft Word. I would prefer that you use a similar formatting to what I'm using in here. If your lab report is unclear, there'll definitely be points deducted. All right, so you have a cover page. You can look through this. You'll have an introduction, and then you'll have your exercises. Make sure that you have clear, bold headings for introduction and each exercise that you have to do. Use bullet points as needed. This LaTeX project is included in here, so if you click this link, it'll actually open this LaTeX project. And I'll show you how to do it. Well, it's already open, but it'll open like this. And now, if you don't have an account for it, you'll have to create an account for Share LaTeX. But what you're going to do is, this is not going to be editable because this is my document. But if you click Menu, you can click Copy Project, and it'll copy the project into a new project under your own account. I need to see if I can publish this as a template, actually. It might make it a little easier for you guys. I'll look into that. Anyways, get back to our document here. So like I said, you'll have an introduction, you'll have a bunch of exercises. You can find this LaTeX document online at the URL that's included in this example lab report. The great thing about LaTeX is that you can do these kind of equations very easily and very cleanly inside this document. There's a special syntax that you kind of have to learn, but it makes for expressing math very easy, which is one of the reasons why LaTeX was created. Here's an example of some images that I inserted. This was from earlier on, the tutorial I did on exercise 5 in your lab report 1. But here's an example of inserting an image. Here's another screenshot of an image from Multisim. So make sure that you label each image correctly with a figure, a number, colon, and then a description of it. And then in your text, you should refer to that. If you're going to include code, which you will, quite quite a bit. Make sure that you put it inside a box like this and name it listing and then a number and then what it is. This is very easy to do in MATLAB. I mean in LaTeX. This is some MATLAB code here. If you're doing it in Microsoft Word, I think you have to actually create a one cell table and then put it in here and then change the table heading from the top to the bottom and then label it correctly. This is the most important thing that I stress on LabReports. Tables. Each exercise should have a summary table with whatever you found in that table. For your first lab, you're not really going to have that many summary tables, and some of them are going to ask you for a graph instead of values, so you're not going to need a table. But make sure you label your table, a number, colon, and then a description of the table, and then you'll refer to the table in your written text. And make sure it's a vertical table. What I mean by a vertical table is you'll have a column here with the values that you found. So here's a bunch of values that I just made up. Then you'll have measured and analytical, or you could say empirical and analytical. But basically, for most of the exercises during the semester, you're going to solve the circuits two different ways. You'll use multisim and you'll use hand calculations. You'll use hand calculations in MATLAB. You'll have different ways of doing it. And so when you have different ways that you found the answer, you're going to have two different columns with the two values in there. And then I can see the values and see if there are any discrepancies. Now there shouldn't be very big discrepancies in any of them, but if there are, then you need to be able to explain that. And so I want to see an explanation in your exercise write-up of why you didn't get the right values. And that's very important. If you don't do that, you will severely be punished in terms of points taken off. All right, and then I like to have you include a conclusion. It's not necessary if you don't want to, but you can just do a little conclusion here and tell me what you liked about the lab, what you didn't like, what you learned, what you didn't learn. If you found any mistakes in the lab, you can add it in there. Here I have a little formatting error, but this should be the bibliography. And I give you an example of how to cite stuff. This is really important. I don't want you to plagiarize anything. So if you cite anything or copy anything, you need to put it in your citation. So for example, here I just cited a random data sheet for a project I had last semester in my sensors class. And then I also cited the lab manual 1 here. So you can see this as an example of how to cite something. Like I said, plagiarism is very important. So if you are going to say anything about the lab manual, you need to cite it. However, bear in mind that your lab report needs to stand independent of the lab manual. So don't assume that if you refer to node this or VX or whatever, like anything like that, that I have a copy of the lab manual. I'm going to read your lab report as if I don't have a lab manual. So it needs to stand by itself and explain to me what you did in the lab without me having to reference the lab manual. So keep that in mind as you're writing. Assume that I don't know anything about this lab that you did and you're explaining it to me. So that's all there is to this. If you have any questions about how to use LaTeX, come ask me and I'll be happy to help you. This template that I made is pretty easy. You fill out your information here. So you'll put your name right there. The date's automatically filled out for you. Your GTA's name right there. Your lab section, whatever the number is right there. Pay attention to your lab section. I'll take points off if you leave it at 1. I see a lot of students doing that. You're not in section 1 unless you are in section 1. I don't want to have to figure out what section you are in from the PDFs on Canvas that I download sometimes. All right, so basically this is the syntax to begin the document. This makes the title page automatically for you. It uses all kinds of cool code that is hidden in this little setup file right here. And then it creates that. I commented out the abstract can't talk today. Abstract section here, you can read through it, but you don't have to include that unless you just want to. Let's see, so your introduction, some of the syntax that you're going to use is like when you start a paragraph, you'll use that syntax. When you end it, you'll start that syntax. If you want to itemize a list, that's how you do it. And you can kind of look back at the PDF to see what it's going to look like once it renders. I like to open 2 of these windows. If you have 2 monitors, for example, then you can open your PDF in one screen and the code in the other screen. You can see how it renders. Yeah, and so each section is going to look like this, and this will automatically create a heading for you and format it properly. If you wanted to add a URL, you kind of use that syntax. So it's some syntax that you have to learn, but it's actually very useful once you get used to it. Once I learned LaTeX, it has saved me a tremendous amount of time in doing these types of reports. So take a look at it, and then if you have any questions, ask one of your GTAs, stop by my office and ask me.